Bom dia, bom dia. Em nome da diretoria da BDO, eu gostaria de dar boas-vindas a todos vocês, registrar nossa satisfação de estar promovendo aqui esse encontro de hoje, que tem como principal objetivo discutir e analisar os caminhos do mundo digital out of home e que contará com a presença de profissionais consagrados do nosso mercado, representando agências de propaganda, anunciantes, veículos, institutos de pesquisa, e também com a participação de um convidado muito especial, que estará conosco hoje aqui, que tem grande representatividade nesse setor em termos internacionais. Acho que a maciça presença que a gente pode constatar de todos vocês hoje aqui reflete bem a importância e o interesse que o tema mídia digital out of home vem despertando nos últimos tempos junto aos mais importantes e diferentes segmentos do mercado. Na realidade, nós podemos ver isso bem ilustrado nesse pequeno filme produzido por uma agência alemã, que mostra bem a realidade atual. O verdadeiro interesse, no fundo, é por tudo aquilo que nos ajude a entender e a enfrentar esses novos desafios da comunicação, que a cada dia se tornam maiores e mais complexos, como todos nós sabemos. A ampla disseminação dos avanços tecnológicos ocorrida nos últimos anos e o profundo impacto que essas mudanças têm gerado no comportamento dos consumidores vem fazendo com que uma nova ordem mundial de mídia comece a assumir contornos cada vez mais nítidos e venha adquirindo aspectos cada dia mais concretos do panorama da comunicação mundial. Em função dessa rápida transformação, é crescente a preocupação entre anunciantes e profissionais de marketing e comunicação de todo o mundo, ao constatarem que as audiências vêm se tornando cada vez mais dispersas e que as mensagens vêm sendo recebidas pelos consumidores de forma cada vez mais fragmentada. A luta deixou de ser apenas por audiência. O verdadeiro desafio passou a ser pela atenção. E uma forma efetiva de conquistar essa atenção é quando umas mensagens são transmitidas em perfeita sincronia com o local e o momento que o público está vivenciando. Como vocês sabem, a cada dia as pessoas estão mais ativas e dinâmicas, elas estudam, trabalham, vão às compras, se divertem. Várias pesquisas comprovam, no Brasil e principalmente em grandes centros urbanos, que elas hoje passam muito mais tempo fora de casa do que algumas décadas atrás. Elas estão em constante movimento. A mídia digital out of home é uma das mais recentes soluções encontradas para atingir esse consumidor no momento certo, o momento de sua decisão de compra ou no momento em que ele se encontra menos disperso, em função de estar disposto a amenizar alguma situação de espera forçada em aeroportos, ônibus, trem, metrô, elevadores, sala de espera, consultórios, bares, restaurantes, etc. Por essa razão, por todas as razões que nós da BDO, Associação Brasileira de Mídia Digital Out of Home, entidade que agrega as 12 principais empresas que atuam nesse setor no Brasil, decidimos convidar um profissional de grande experiência e comprovado destaque internacional para nos falar um pouco sobre esse mundo, o mundo do mídia digital Out of Home. Trata-se de Dusho, é fundador e presidente da BroadSign, membro da diretoria, membro do board da OVAB, que é o Out of Home Video Advertising Bureau, correspondente da BDO nos Estados Unidos, e que vai nos falar um pouco sobre as últimas tendências internacionais desse setor. Brian, let's go.
Good morning. First, I want to thank ABDOH for coordinating this event. And I think by the show of people in this room and the people standing in the back, digital out-of-home is alive in Brazil. I think that's a fact. A little bit about myself. I know that Watali had explained a little bit about my perspective and why I think some of the things I'll talk about today, I have a lot of basis and understanding of the market. I sit on the board of the Out-of-Home Video Advertising Bureau, which I'm going to talk to you about today, and the importance that has been to the digital out-of-home marketplace. I also serve on the OAAA, which is the Out-of-Home Advertising Association's Technology Board, and also on the board of the Canadian Out-of-Home Digital Advertising Association. Also, I serve as president and co-founder of BroadSign. And sitting on the associations, you learn a lot about your colleagues and about the industry and a lot of the research that's put together. But some of the grassroots learnings that I had the hard way is co-founding a business in this space. And a little bit about BroadSign so you understand the perspective that I have is that we provide a software technology for 165 networks in 20 countries. I've seen a lot of media companies today have great success in this space. I've seen others that have failed miserably in this space. And I've seen a lot of people in between. So it's given me a very clear perspective on some of the things that need to happen in this marketplace. Everything's not cut and dry because we have a very dynamic media in front of us. From my perspective, when you look across the media landscape, probably the most dynamic media that there is. And I think we have proof that takes us to that point. So when we talk about the media landscape, before I get going, I'd just like to understand from an audience how many people are in the media, are media buyers or come from agencies? And how many people are network owners or media companies that operate in digital out-of-home? So it's about 50-50. Well, the exercise of the day is how many different types of media can you name? And when you really think about, and I watched the video that I just saw, it's pretty confusing. So I did an exercise, and I looked and I said radio, TV, newspapers, magazines, direct mail, internet, coupons, flyers, and my favorite, which I highlight because I think it's funny, is egg cartons. In the U.S., we advertise on egg cartons. So you're being bombarded by all this media, but it's passive media. It's distracting media. And actually, what actually happens with that media? Does anything really happen other than a big distraction to people? So when I look at the media landscape, and I like to look at this, and I think when you look at this from a perspective that I'm defining consumer interaction and engagement based on feedback, based on results. So I think it's clear that when you look at a marketplace, that television's always had the largest market share. But not only because of the audience. I think that's where we always thought that they had the reason they had the largest market share. But actually, it's because with TV, you actually had some results and some measurement out of it. The other ones, I believe, are a throwaway. They don't matter. The consumer's getting information, but it's not the advertising that they're getting. They're getting information from other means. So what really drives the change? What drives the change in the behaviors of consumers? It's mobility. I can speak from a U.S. perspective. Nobody's home. I have an 8-year-old son who's never home. He's at school, or he's at Taekwondo, or he's at the park, but he doesn't watch TV. So mobility is driving change, and I know mobility drives change here. I've seen the traffic. I see the work patterns. People aren't there, so the consumer's speaking out. The consumer's asking, how do you work with me? I don't think we get to tell the consumer anymore what they get to choose. I think the consumer chooses. So when I look, this is a statistic for the U.S., just looking at out-of-home versus in-home time. And one of my colleagues in the U.S. is a senior vice president with Starcom, and he uses the term "fish where the fish are." And clearly here, when you see and you look at the chart and the stats, people aren't home. The red line is indicating general population gone from the home, and the yellow line indicates general population watching TV. As you can see, people come home to sleep, and people watch TV before they go to bed. That's what this shows. When you look at the next chart, which is the most sought-after demographic in the world, the 18 to 25-year-olds, the red line indicates that where they're gone from home. And this data shows on the green line that 18 to 24-year-olds that are actually watching TV. Now, personally, as a parent, the most scary part of this data is the fact that it looks like kids are never home. So, you can see that there's no way you're going to reach that demographic through the television or through the conventional sources of media. So let's look at the landscape today, or at least in this decade, and what's changed. So when you look at this, and you look at some of the different mediums, and I can speak to like U.S. and Europe, newspapers are going out of business. I don't think we'll see a world where our children will wake up, turn the coffee pot on to get their coffee, and then read a newspaper. Again, my son's 8. I just watch what he does, and he turns on the computer. So we know that those mediums aren't going anywhere. As you can see, mobile, online, and place-based or digital out-of-home are thriving. Because if you look at the chart and the same metric that I talked about before, which has to do with consumer interaction and results, those are leading the charge. Television is king. It's not going away, but its market share will shrink. And it's going to be repurposed. It already is. Because TV's on demand as it is today. You're choosing what you do with your television. So then, when we look at what I just showed you on the graph, and then you look about what the spending is from the media community, it's out of sync. The only one that's targeted is really the radio. They're kind of in line. But when you look at TV versus time spent versus the media spend, it doesn't make sense. And then when you look at out-of-home, where everybody is, the numbers vary drastically. So if I go back to what my friend told me, fish where the fish are, right now advertisers are fishing in an empty pond. So let's look at the dynamic media today in the landscape. When you're looking at television,